The Art of War says that all warfare is based in deception. This is the lens through which we should view the propaganda that is being carried out by the U.S. State Department and all of its disinformation arms. This is the lens through which we should view the false Xinjiang narrative, the false narrative that China is committing a genocide against Xinjiang's Uyghur Muslims. This is the lens through which we should view the perpetual line of propaganda narratives about North Korea, which claim without any real basis that the DPRK's government is carrying out egregious human rights abuses. This is the lens through which we should view our modern campaign of anti-communist propaganda as war, as the class war that is being preemptively waged by the U.S. national security state. By this I mean that the U.S. national security state is preparing for a scenario where a people's war will break out in this country, where the proletariat will get sufficiently organized and equipped to seize large chunks of territory from the U.S. government, in which case there will come to apply all of the factors which decide general types of warfare, including a factor that the Art of War mentioned about how all warfare is based in deception. This is the factor of the narrative which is in people's minds. The question of who the masses within a particular area support, which side they view as most in line with their values and their interests, that's the question which so often decides which side is going to win over that part of the world, which side is going to prevail in that zone. Right now, of course, the vast majority of the U.S. population sides with the U.S. military. They would likely hypothetically side with the U.S. military over a hypothetical communist guerrilla insurgency. But this could easily change when the U.S. military starts to bring home its less savory ways of taking care of business, such as carpet bombings, such as drone strikes against civilians, such as the use of depleted uranium against civilians. When the U.S. military starts enacting these kinds of cruelties against its own citizens, a lot of those citizens are going to have their confidence in the United States shaken, and they'll be susceptible to the arguments of the communists, which is, of course, join our side and you'll be able to participate in a workers' democracy that gives you a say in how the economy is run, that gives you a fair vote, unlike the U.S. government. These are the kinds of disruptions in the cultural hegemony that are going to no doubt appear when the U.S. military decides to take drastic measures to crush the proletarian and anti-colonial movement within this country. And when this conflict breaks out, if or when it breaks out, the military is going to have to employ measures to control the flow of information very tightly. Already in these last few years, the military, in a report that I'll link below, has discussed options for shutting off the internet in the zones within the U.S. that it plans to occupy, discussed ways to craft compelling narratives that paint the U.S. military in a positive light despite the atrocities that it's going to commit. And now, as we see the constant proliferation of things like the Xinjiang narrative, we're seeing the preemptive strategy that the military is using to try to get the masses of the U.S. On its side in a hypothetical class conflict scenario. This is the tactic of utilizing emotionally charged anti-communist stories like China is committing genocide to radicalize a lot of people in the U.S. who may be politically on the fence towards full-on fanatical hatred for Marxism-Leninism. This is the nature of the information warfare that's being utilized by the U.S. national security state right now. The strategy of exploiting people's capacity for empathy towards preemptively turning them into agents for counter-revolution. This is the propaganda strategy that's been built upon the mass manipulation innovations from the Iraq invasion and from the Syria regime change war of this last decade. And this is what we're going to have to combat as we try to bring about proletarian revolution within the imperial core.